So we've got right something a bit more unfortunately dark and unfortunate that what Israel has been doing for almost the most part of 2 weeks now. It's been bombing, dropping re- crazy bombs on Gaza. Um, Not many people, as you can see there, speaking about it. But amidst all of that, you have got if I we've got something that a lot of people have been speaking about, and that is the UAE and the Israel deal, which has been brokered recently to recognize Israel. And with it, you will see, if I can just bring up here, uh, right, just one moment. Right, Trump is expecting KSA. I don't know if that's true, but he's expecting KSA to sign up to that deal as well pretty soon. Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, that is. So whether they will or not, Allahu A'lam. But that's just to. So what is going on here? What are my thoughts about this? So first and foremost, my du'as, heartfelt du'as, my thoughts go out to all those people who've been, unfortunately, who have suffered the lot. First of all, the loss of life, or the loss of loved ones, or just harm and injury as a result of what's been going on in the past 2 weeks. So, may Allah make things easy. Right, as far as the UAE thing is concerned, a lot of people had been messaging me as well. Oh, Mufti, you speak about this. What are your thoughts? Yeah, I mean, first of all, I just want to say about people are going at Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya and they're going at Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. I do think that's a bit unfair, to be honest. I think that's not a bit. That is, I do think it's unfair. Um, because I don't think, in all honesty, the the kind of king, the ruler of UAE, really gives a crap. I don't really think he even cares about what Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya has to say about anything. Whether he may pretend on certain things, but they don't really care. I don't think they will just have people, hold a council on something. And I did hear that this is what I've heard from sources close to Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya, that Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya wasn't actually pleased about the treaty, but he had just agreed in saying that when the king has passed a ruling, then that king's ruling, so the UAE, his ruling is to be honored. Not that he was happy with what the kind of details were. In fact, this is what I've heard. Allahu A'lam. I don't know, whatever. I've just heard this. But I do think, okay, putting that aside, I do think, look, the king doesn't really care. These people don't care about what ulama or scholars or whatever. And I don't think Hamza Yusuf had anything to do with it at all. So I think just dragging his name into it, I don't think is fair. This is just my opinion. As far as this actual ruling, what do I think about it? Well, look, it's Israel is not right. Okay, Israel is at a state level. It is a terrorist at a state level. Okay, this is not anti-Semitism. I'm not against Jewish people. I'm not against people, whatever ethnicity they are. The truth is, at a state level, it has committed war crimes, and this is something the UN are aware of. This is something people have written about. Many people have written about this. Noam Chomsky, so many other academics have written. Finkelstein, so many people have highlighted the atrocities that the state of Israel has conducted against vulnerable, really, for the most part, very vulnerable Palestinians. So I don't think this is going to really do anything. Like, I understand the UAE's proposal is that by presenting this, we can broker some peace in the region. But in all honesty, if you look at since this deal has been signed, what peace has there been? There's been like almost 2 weeks just bombardment. Okay, they claim that Hamas has been setting off these incendiary kind of like balloons, helium balloons that kind of go and catch fire somewhere, and they said we're going to fire. We've now got a policy that any fire is to be treated as a rocket, so we will retaliate with by any incendiary device. Like if you send anything with a fire over here, like let's say technically it could be like okay, petrol bomb, if I chuck a petrol bomb, let's say, into Israel, if the Palestinians did, then that is technically to be treated, any fire is to be treated as a missile. So what that means is this projectile, this is a missile, a flying kind of fire, so it will be retaliated with a missile. Sorry, it's not funny, but it's the crazy absurdity that makes one kind of like laugh in just confusion of what the other person is saying here. Like you're like, like what are you actually just saying? Like, do you hear yourself? Like you're saying, well, missile is this a projectile, is something that comes flying, and any fire so these balloons, helium balloons, which come and they come and they're incendiary, so they cause fire. So it will now be treated as a missile, and we will retaliate with a state of the art actual missile, highly destructive. I mean, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, and it is just a shame for the sheer loss of life. And I don't know how the Palestinians function. Honestly, I can't even imagine. I can't. I would be lying if I said I could even imagine how they actually still function. Because as a person, I would assume one would just have given up on everything. But yeah, I don't think the UAE thing is a solution. I don't think so, because it clearly hasn't brokered any peace. If we're going to be honest, it hasn't brokered anything. No peace has happened. And I don't really think it matters. But the truth is, there does need to be a solution. That is true as well. Another very hard truth is that Israel is here to stay. I think we as Muslims have to accept that Israel is here to stay. And as unfortunate as it is, and as it's like they say, put a stone on your heart in certain languages. The proverb is, or in this case, to kind of like, we have to bite the bullet and take the dagger, and we have to just accept that it is what it is. You see, Israel is not going to go away, and it is established, and it is there. So now the question is, how do you move forward? So I would argue that I would actually say, I know nobody would accept this, because I would say the ideal thing would be to have then a two-state solution, which I think would never happen, because Israel, in its state of mind, would never accept it, because they know the moment we accept that, they will just, or the assumption, sorry, not that they know, the assumption is if we give them a state where they can fly in, fly out, do whatever they want, they will just set up so much armory, and then they'll just attack us. So we're never going to let that happen. So that's one thing. The other thing is that, so ideally it ought to become two-state solution, but I feel that that's never going to happen. I then would argue for a complete exile of all Palestinians. I would say that all Palestinians should leave Palestine, and it should be facilitated for them. Sorry, by Palestine, I mean the Gaza Strip and the parts that are kind of blocked in clearly by Israel. Now, I feel that they should be relocated and comfortably with compensation and accommodation and education paid for in different parts of the Arab world, Arabic speaking world. So acclimatizing is not difficult for them, and they shouldn't be set up as ghettos or clusters, but kind of spread out. And there's many Arab countries in the world, and I'm sure that that could even happen, and Israel probably would even be happy to pay for it because the amount of money it spends on even bombing them is these things don't come cheap. So, but the problem with this thought that or this kind of a solution is one, people will coward shame the Palestinians. You see, you know the way people do things, like they shame one another. You hear things like I think I was discussing the other day, where people will kind of shame, and sometimes men shaming men, women shaming women. There's this kind of thing of like, oh, so you have these terms sometimes like slut shaming and this kind of stuff. Muslims do that to Palestinians. Muslims do it. What they do is they guilt trip them, that you guys have to stay there and you have to put up with this because this is the holy land you're defending. Somebody said like Arab countries wouldn't even take them, but this is what I'm saying. If there was a deal to not as refugees, see, they won't take refugees, but if they came in at a level, like if you had a middle class kind of, and they were spread out, spread thin, so you don't create ghettos. So if you had a middle class apartment fully paid for in another city, like let's say in Tunis somewhere, and you've got compensation, you've got money in the bank, you can just move right in and continue to live a lifestyle like that. Countries would accept you if you came in with money and it was brokered as a deal. They won't accept you as a refugee because you're just a burden to them. So, yeah, but coming back to my point, that Muslims guilt trip these Palestinians. Secondly, there's a lot of politics, There's Arab countries are happy that Palestine is between them and Israel because it creates a buffer zone. Because if Israel was to just take over that completely, then they would be the next target for Israel. So they would rather that the next guy is getting beaten up and they're just at a safe distance saying, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, as opposed to saying, uh-oh, against Saleh. It's like, so Jordan and these other countries are glad that there is this buffer zone. So there's a lot of politics going on here, people. But I honestly feel that, and even this whole thing, I know people won't agree with me on the whole Jerusalem thing, but to me, Jerusalem was never that sacred anyway, from an Islamic viewpoint. It was something, the real glorification, like it was there, as I've mentioned before, it was there. It was associated with prior prophets, but it wasn't seen as this mega, the way it's seen today. And the glorification of Jerusalem began with Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, the caliph who creates this rival city to Mecca and Medina, to kind of, especially to Mecca, not to Medina, but to distract people from Abdullah ibn Zubayr and to allow them to come to a pilgrimage in the rock, Dome of the Rock. So this, and then ever since, people have, they've added stuff, and then it's become this really holy site. But even if, look, let's go with the argument. I know people ain't going to agree with me on that, and I've never believed that was Masjid al-Aqsa anyway. Masjid al-Aqsa, in my understanding, would have been, the farthest point would have been in the heavens. Because Al-Aqsa, the farthest point, is not Jerusalem. Why is that the farthest point on earth? So the Al-Aqsa would have been in the heavens, in my understanding. But even if you take it, let's say, you take the fact that Jerusalem is a really holy site in Islam, let's just say, it's not holy as you don't have to do a pilgrimage there. And to be honest, no matter how holy it is to us, it's arguably that area is more holy and more sacred to the Jewish people. So if they took it, they're only going to take care of it. They're not going to, they're not going to go around turning that area into a toilet or doing something like that. Remember, it's sacred territory for them as well. In fact, I would feel it's more sacred for them. So even though it's a different religion, but TK, it doesn't. It's only bricks and mortar. It's not. Is not life more valuable? It's that Allah didn't send us on this earth just to preserve some bricks. Preservation of life trumps all. And at the end of the day, look, they just want to set up a temple. If they want to set up the temple and they take over and they won't be killing people, and it's dedicated to the Israeli prophets who, by the way, are all in the Quran. So, okay, but we have to just accept that this war is lost. There's no point fighting a lost war, because it's just, what is really tragic is the amount of people dying. And I think even though Muslims are making a big deal about that, which is rightly so, but they don't seem to be making a big deal about, like, they seem to be glossing over the fact that, wait a minute, why are we guilt tripping these people to put up with it? We should be, life comes before place. Like, if you had the choice to save a life or the Kaaba, the hadith teaches you that the hadith says a Muslim, not even his life, his honor is much more important than the entire Kaaba being destroyed, rebuilt, destroyed, rebuilt, destroyed, rebuilt, destroyed. Goes up to 7 times. The honor of a Muslim, it says. Here you've got entire hundreds, thousands lives being killed, blood being shed, and people, they're upset about it, but they're like, yeah, but the Holy Land. What the hell is the Holy Land? Yeah, what is this Holy Land? The Holy Land, the Holy Land. We need to realize that, look, human life comes first. These people who are tyrants are not going to back off. So what does Allah say in the Quran? Ardullahi wasi'ah. The Prophet said that Ju'ilat lil ardu masjid, and the whole earth is a sacred place for us to bow down. We don't need Jerusalem. So I feel that, look, we need to, this is my understanding, that we need to know when a fight is lost. That this against Israel is lost. And we need to kind of like just accept that. And realize that these tyrants, Israel is a tyrant terrorist state. It is not going to back down. It is going to butcher and missile children. So, and there needs to be some kind of, this needs to stop. But how do people stop it? It doesn't seem like they're going to stop. So this is my suggestion. But you see, the irony is, I bet you people all of a sudden wouldn't care about the Palestinians. Because they only care about them so long as they're in Palestine. They wouldn't care about them if let's get them relocated and living in another place in another nice city somewhere. They wouldn't all of a sudden that care would just go away. It'd be like, no. Stay in Palestine and die. That's my thoughts on it, man. I don't know. And I'm this is not, and you can rewind and watch what I've just said in case you've missed it. I'm being very clear that Israel is being a terrorist state. That's what it's doing. But we have to realize, like, if there's a person here, and, I did a while back, I did Eskrima, yeah, which was, it was stick, knife, sword kind of fighting, but there was an emphasis on stick and knife. But I remember the teacher, he told us, look, there's a simple rule in life. Yeah, he said, like, if you're ever confronted with a knife, right? He said, look, the first thing, he said that, listen to this. The first thing is run. It's not, look, you have to realize that there's certain things that are not, they're not, it's, it's a handicap thing. It's too easy to be stabbed. He said, however, if that's not an option, that's where this skill comes in, to try and defend, to try and block, to try and turn the attack. But by the first means is you're not an equal option here. Don't try and punch the person and do. If you can, get away. That's because if a person, similarly, if a person has a gun, obviously now he's going to shoot you. You're going to have to do some zigzags. But the point is, so actually, if they've got a gun, I think it's better to fight them. I would actually charge them if they had a gun, but I would run if they had a knife. So the point is that, look, you've got to understand that these people are not going to back down, and they're going to butcher relentlessly and mercilessly. So I would say that, yeah. So I hope that doesn't upset certain people, but yeah. But this UAE thing, I don't think it's done jack. Okay, I don't think it's brokered any peace. And I do think that the king of UAE is just doing it to kind of, he's just got his own deal. Maybe Israel's paying him a bunch of, he must definitely be getting a huge whack for doing that. Maybe America has said to them, look, if you do this, we'll broker a deal with you. So there must be so many backhanders going on with that. And I think it's unfair to put the price of that on the shoulders of Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya and Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, because I don't think they really had any. Hamza Yusuf, I don't think, had anything to do with it. And Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya, even though he does kind of like sign off for the king and stuff like that, but then he's kind of stuck as well. You got to be honest. It's not like, I don't think he would be happy with that. And no, I've heard from my sources that he's not happy with the decision either. Cool, right, alright, let's, Mufti, what about the Kashmir issue? Yeah, I feel that, look, the Kashmir issue, similarly, if that is an option, if it is an option that they were to relocate them all, then fine, but then personally, I would say that it's slightly different. I would see some differences. Because you see, the difference with the Kashmir issue is it's a heavily militarized zone. It's not exactly like for like, because what you have is in Gaza, it's not a militarized zone. It's just a cut-off kind of prison, which they just keep bombarding. In Kashmir, it's more that there's an overkill military presence, who then just by their very existence will torment the kind of residents because they see them as different. So the question here is, India wouldn't really, in my understanding, ever be up for, as far as I'm aware, to kind of relocate all those kind of people comfortably. I don't think they ever would, because Indian government is like a cheap government. They would never consider that. Yeah, they might just kick them out and tell them get lost. They'd be happy to do that. But I wasn't saying that for the Palestinians, just tell them get lost. I was saying that I'm pretty sure they could broker a deal where they would happily pay, because I'm sure they would be happy to pay. So, yeah. But ideally for the Kashmir issue, I would see, this is what I ideally opt for, is that Kashmir could just become independent. So, as in not part of Pakistan, not part of India, just independent. That, I think, would be the solution. And I think it could be done if what they did is, in the Kashmir issue, you see, a certain part of Kashmir, maybe not all of it, a certain part of it, they gave it independence. Now, whoever wants to be a part of that could then move to that part. It could work like that, I think. Because they would never give up the whole of it, because then it would make Pakistan too vulnerable. Because obviously, if they gave up the whole of Kashmir, if Pakistan gave it up, Pakistan would never give it up, because then it would be a problem it would be too close to Islamabad. And if it got infiltrated by India, they would be too close. So if they maintained buffers and just gave a certain region like the valley and certain parts, they made that independent. And some other parts, I'm not too, whatever, they can. But these things would never happen, but I wish they would. Right.